Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hey, Enchilada Nation, really excited to have you back today. As you know, we're focused on leadership, and we're going to keep that conversation rolling with another phenomenal leader today, Emily Lowry, who is a general manager for several Keller Williams offices and an operating principal and an entrepreneur herself, and just an incredible leader. Emily, thanks for being on today.
Thank you for asking me.
Yep. So I gave a quick intro to you. What else should we know about you before we jump into our leadership topic?
Yeah, so just kind of life things. I've been married for 18 years, which is crazy. And I have 2 kids. I have a daughter, Lucy, she's just turned 12, and my son Crosby is 8. And that is, that's my life. That's my world. Honestly, it's kind of funny because in my heart, I'm a stay-at-home mom, room mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom who is also full-time worker, full-time everything, full-time mom, full-time worker, I don't know, all of the things.
Yeah, I actually love that you said that as part of this conversation of leadership, because I think a lot of people feel like to escalate and grow and really climb the ladder in the business world, you have to give up some of that. And that's one of the things I've always really, part of what I've been impressed with you is your ability to stay so connected with your family and your other priorities, which is really in alignment with the message of the Whole Enchilada. So congratulations on that. And you're about to cross the threshold into parenting teenagers, which is what I learned completely different than.
I'm convinced we're going to be best friends. We are going to be best friends always, and it's going to be fine. That's one of my things I tell myself. We're best friends.
Keep telling yourself, and there will be moments you are. There's other moments where you, like Chriselle and I sometimes do, we catch glances with each other, like, what is going on in our world right now? It's a completely different skill set.
Even now I tell Lucy, I've never had a 12-year-old daughter, so I don't know how to do it. So help me, help you. I'm not supposed to, just because I am your mom doesn't mean I know how. Let's figure it out. I don't know.
I use that too. And my girls think it's really funny because I also add in the layer of like, this may come as a surprise to you. I've never been a teenage girl. So sure, I do not know what you're feeling right now, but help me understand. So that's funny. That's fun. I always forget that you and I both have Lucy's too.
Oh, yes. I forgot that.
So, such a cute name. All right. Well, leadership. So one of the things, Emily and I had a quick conversation right before we jumped in. And as I've been thinking through how to think through the topic of leadership, which is leadership is such a broad, there's so many pieces and facets and types of leadership. I sat down and thought through a couple different categories that I think are really important for us to cover with the Enchilada Nation in regards to leadership. And one of the things that I wrote down is the importance of culture and creating that culture and that team environment. Because if a leader doesn't have people to lead that are as bought into the vision as they are, you can't be a leader. And as I sat and thought through that, you came to mind of one thing that I think you've just done incredible with your teams is every time we go to a regional meeting or every time I visited your office, it's like your people love you. They love the vision. They love what you're about. And so I thought, you know what? I got to get Emily on the show to talk through this. So thanks for being on and sharing.
That's so nice. Thanks.
Yeah. So let's start there. I'm curious. Let's go, instead of talking about how you do it right now, we're going to come back to that. Where did your need to grow a team in leadership? Like, did you have someone that in your past that was a phenomenal leader that did that well, that you said, aha, I got to do that? Like, where did that come from for you?
Oh, that's kind of interesting because I've had really good mentors. I've had mentors who have really, taken an interest in me and have really helped me on the one-on-one and have helped me feel like my opinion matters, my ideas are good, and had in a more collaborative type of style of leadership. And that really resonated well with me. Mm-hmm. I was on one team when I very first started real estate for a builder back in 2004. And we were really tight knit. And even to this day, some of my best friends like Darlene Carter and some of these people that I love so much, we were all a part of this team that had kind of built, and we've stayed close over the years, and we're leaders in other companies. And so we are able to help each other. And so it's almost more that I've taken components of some of these different experiences, the good and the bad, and tried I try to bring it together of what's most effective.
Yeah.
Because quite honestly, I used to be a big workaholic sort of thing, and I did have my kids later in life. And so I was already just so far into where I was in my career that in order to there's no balance that doesn't exist, but in order to just try to keep as focused as possible on trying to have that balance is to just keep the perspective that this job isn't my life. It's an important part of my life, but it is not my life. It's facilitating my life. And that being clear for myself helps me to also have the perspective. It's the same for my leadership team. This is a privilege. I feel it a privilege that they're with me because they chose this route to be the catalyst for what they want in what their real life is. This is not their real life. This is a piece to help them get what they want in their life.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally. I actually love the way you said that, because I think a lot of employees in general, or people that are on teams behind closed doors, or when they go home at night, would say something along the lines of, they don't know how lucky they are to have me, or they're lucky to have me on their team. I love, and I believe that your team believes that. I love that you approach it of saying, I know that I'm lucky to have them. Like, I don't need
That's
them
actually
to
a measure. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, jump in.
That's kind of a measurement for me, is that when I am feeling that way, that either I don't have the right person, or I don't have the right person in the right position, or I'm not showing up in the right way for that person. So it's got to change. Because as soon as I am feeling like, well, just do it because I told you to do it. Just do it, because if I'm feeling like, well, why are you not doing it? Why are you not bought in? Or there's something there which is telling me this is not going to be able to go forward in this way.
Yeah.
And
I think our parents' generation too was more of the manager leader mindset was, well, I pay you a paycheck. Like, you get a paycheck on Fridays. So when you're here, you're doing what I need done. It's like, this is how that works. And I think the even younger than our generation, that next generation coming up, I almost think the money piece of the job is secondarily to the life that they're living, the quality of life, the culture of the team piece of the job comes a lot of times before the money for those people.
And I think we forget it's also a parenting thing. For me, I have a couple of great mentors, of course, and I have a sister who I have lots of sisters, and they're all mentors for me in lots of different ways. I have one that's incredibly successful professionally, and parenting wise too. She's one that I just really have always respected how she goes about how she interacts with her kids. And one of the things that she told me was that it's their life. I asked her, why are you letting them do that? And her response was, well, just because I had them doesn't mean it's my life. It's their life. So I try, even with my kids, even though they're younger, like, okay, well, this is their life. These are their experiences, and it's their opportunity. I'm here to help facilitate that. And then in trying to have that same perspective, because nobody wants to feel like they're failing, or not that they're not failing, but that they're not killing it, right? They're not making a difference. And so it's essentially, it's their job, it's their position. They're the ones doing it and impacting it. And so what can I do to facilitate that? If they're doing it for me, they're never going to have the buy-in, and they're not going to be effective, which means they're not going to have job satisfaction. And it just starts this terrible circle where they end up not being a part of the team, which is the best thing you can do for them is if they're not totally winning, they need to not be there.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, when you're describing your leadership style right now, it actually ties back into what you said some of your mentors did at the beginning, was that more collaborative leadership where you felt like whatever your position was on that team or within that relationship, that you were having a direct impact on it. And I love that you tied that in to the way you lead now, is that it's your team members have ownership of their role and they feel like they're contributing to something. So how do you, from the moment you hire someone joins the team, how do you get them bought into the vision and also provide that opportunity or that ownership piece for them of like, we want you to bring your ideas to the table?
Yeah. That's a good question. And I think I'm kind of making it sound like it's so, I want to also be clear that I know that it can be hard to work for. It is kind of like it's going to be worth it sort of
Mhm.
environment sometimes. I know that I do ask a lot. And so it isn't like, so I'm glad to say that it seems like everybody likes being, working with me. And see, that's a word too, is I don't ever say they work for me. I don't ever say, like, in terms of my kids, of what they think that they don't necessarily know that I have people who work for me. It's, I
Mhm.
work with them. We work together. We're doing this together. I think that sort of mindset is important, but I do expect a lot, but I do not expect anything I'm not willing to do myself. I will never ask somebody if the expectation is they got to show up and be around. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be around, because you have to be mindful of that. So when somebody first starts, I feel a huge responsibility that I have to cast the vision, but I've got to be clear of what that vision is, and then tie that back into what it means for them. Because even when Boyd approached me to come and work here, I remember one of the first things I said is, why would I leave and go build another company for somebody else? If I'm going to make a change, I'm not doing it. Why would I come and do this for you? Which is a super snotty thing to say, and also important. And so I've tried to kind of keep that approach is, okay, how is this going to affect you? Why is this important for you personally to know that at a high level? So it starts with being clear about what that is. And then also really paying attention to the efforts, trying to keep it as simple as possible, and do tons of recognition, tons and tons of recognition, tons of awarding in terms of, hey, did you see this happen? Good job, this person. Thank you for doing that. I see that you really care about this. I see that this is important to you, and I appreciate your effort. And just really try to celebrate the activity and the effort along the way, because it's hard. We decided for some reason, you and I decided to come and do this business, and not only be in this industry, but then to be leadership and owners of companies that are hard in a really, really hard industry. And so we have to give our guts to it. It's got to be worth it, right? And especially where worth it doesn't mean necessarily equate to money. The money doesn't necessarily equate to the effort, right? It doesn't necessarily balance or justify that out. So it's got to be more than just that.
I love that you're bringing that up, because a lot of times people that pursue leadership, they're coming from very successful positions. Like you talk about you going to help Boyd build his company, and it's created additional opportunities for you. It's not like you were sitting in a place that you were unsuccessful. You were crushing it. You were doing things on a high level and made a choice, because I believe for a lot of leaders, there's this inherent burning in you of, I want to help people get to the next level. Like and a lot of times it's a lateral movement or a sideways movement. If every once in a while you get a leader that jumps into a leadership role or gets offered a leadership role, and they're coming from a lesser opportunity or something that they were kind of failing at, and more than likely that's a track record, they're going to fail in the leadership role, because it's not leadership driven within of, like, I want to have an impact. It's about them.
Well, and then also make sure it does give you having the right perspective, and it does fill you up to see them grow. But you got to check yourself with that too, because I do see that, and I'm sure there has been times in my leadership where you're taking all the credit for the things that happen, right? As a leader, you're the one, just naturally you get the accolades for those things. And I think you've got to check yourself with that. For example, one of my people they've had a goal, Kimber has had a goal for a while, to be on the panel, family reunion. She wanted to be on this year at the panel. Monday, we were talking about it. I didn't get it. She was kind of discouraged, And then the next day I was thinking of how I didn't give her enough attention about that. Because in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, well, I didn't. If I didn't get it, whatever, that's not what it's about. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what was important to her, right? And just putting my own spin on it. So I was thinking how I could have been more empathetic. And I could have really taken some time and say, hey, tell me more about why that was important to you. I really want to help sit in it with you and sit in, I'm sorry, that sucks. And that's sad. Instead of trying to just, you know what, you're building, you're working hard, who cares what they say, you know, throwing that out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're on the panel. Instead of that route being like, I feel bad that happened. And that's something that was really important to you. Let's sit in it and let's let it be sad. Let that be sad for you. Well, then yesterday she called me like screaming and cheering and yelling. She got a call. She's going to be on the panel, right?
Oh, she is? Oh,
yes,
that's
and
awesome.
So excited, and it's so great, and it's a big accomplishment for her. And then that got me thinking also that this is her accomplishment. She did it. And just like we don't want to accept the errors of or the shortcomings of our people, we also can't take credit for their wins. We've got to make sure that their wins are theirs. You did this. You're great. Good job. This happened because of you and what you've done. And thank you for your efforts. Instead of, it's easy because we already get the credit for the end results when we win. The leader's the one that gets that. And I think we've got to shift that and make sure that we're really pointing where that credit should be going.
Yeah, I love that. And I think part of that is also helping them see that their win in their role, how did it tie to the end result?
Specifically them, regardless of what level you're on, or which I don't like that hierarchy. Does not work for me.
Yeah, because I do think that helps them keep bought into the longer vision when they see I did this and it caused our office to do this. And a lot of times that's what's getting recognized on a more national scale is what was the end result. And that's something I need to be better at too, is saying like, yes, the end result's awesome, but it's directly related back to your huge win right here. Yeah. I love that. I want to circle back. Oh, please.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you.
I wanted to circle back to something you said a minute ago. I think was really important that I wanted to expand on a little bit was that you expect a lot of the people on your team. And a lot of times when you see a team with a lot of culture and stuff in it, we see the fun part, we see the connection, we see the friendships, and we don't think that there's that high level of accountability or expectation of the people in those roles. I think that we do a huge disservice if we're going to go to the effort of hiring really phenomenal talent, that we need and owe them the conversation to hold them accountable to those expectations. So a lot of times that first crucial or difficult conversation with someone on your team can be the most difficult. How do you approach that in a way that your team feels loved and appreciated?
Well, I think what's important first and foremost is they have to feel safe. So I do have a couple of, it's the same thing with my kids. I can't have things be too complicated or I don't do it, but I only have a few rules, right? A few actual rules. And for example, with my kids, a rule is as soon as somebody says no or stop, and you're stopping. I don't care what it is. Stop, no, we do. And one of the rules here is there is zero gossip. Zero gossip. I will let you go if you are a point of gossip. It's not tolerated. There's a difference between concern and wanting to talk through something. How can I best navigate this in a safe zone? And then keeping those, keeping that private in an appropriate way of talking through that. And so from the very beginning, that's an expectation. I'm talking like first interview. These are my rules. These are the things that are important to me. No gossip, no assumption. I mean, and my team can tell you these things about me because they're the things. You do not assume something. The minute that I hear somebody say, well, I didn't because I thought that, nope. You take the second, the extra minute to find out what that is. You never assume that somebody was going to do something or that they didn't expect something from you, or that is really important. But you have to create those two things in particular create trust. And I think you have to have such a high level of trust that I'm going to be real with you. I'm never going to betray you. I'm not going to talk behind your back, and I'm not going to allow anybody else to do that. And it's going to be addressed. And then also you as a leader, I had to really learn, and I'm still learning to be vulnerable, right? You had to create an environment where it is encouraged, important, expected that you're vulnerable, that you open up about the things, the strengths and the weaknesses that you have. And then these discussions of problems and holes and leaks like that, rather than, and this is probably wrong, but it's worked so far, but rather than having closed door comments about, unless somebody's really struggling and you don't want to call them out, but if you really know your team and they trust you and they're vulnerable because you're vulnerable, then you know those things. But holes in your processes or things that just aren't going well, that there isn't individual discussions going around and around and around. We're getting together. It's a safe environment where people can talk about, this isn't working because of this. Well, then this isn't working because of this, that everybody feels safe to talk it out, to talk through it. And it doesn't mean you didn't do that right, doesn't equate to you're not right or you don't have that right. Let us help you figure out how we can fix this portion of it, because this is how it's affecting everything else. And when it's out in the open, in an open environment like that, it continues to build that safety and that protection of trust, that no, we are all here working toward the same thing. And there's no expectation that you have to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. So let's figure this out now. And I just think that really, really helps with those backdoor conversations and this person thinks this, well, I heard this, and nope, the second I hear somebody said something about this, it's addressed quickly, compassionately, immediately, like not doing it.
I love that. And I think that really sets the tone of like that builds the trust with your team that, well, she's not going to let me talk about so-and-so. She's not going to let that person talk about me either. And I love that you bring up vulnerability. This was a huge gap in my own leadership for a lot of years, of just not understanding the importance of vulnerability in leadership. And a lot of times those crucial, difficult conversations we have to have as leaders, there's a lot of things that have to happen leading up to that for us to earn the right to be able to have those conversations. Because if we just walk in and have those conversations without earning the right to do it, then it actually damages that leadership position and probably it damages that relationship that's really hard to repair. And I think one of the biggest things we can do as leaders to earn the right for those conversations is be vulnerable along the way.
It gives them permission.
Yes, I love that.
It does. I mean, even an extreme awful example is back in September when one of our key agents on our ALC, just like the agent that's there every single day that was such a huge part of our culture, passed away, and it was in a horrific way, right? And it was a tragic situation. And just trying, okay, where do I go? People are looking to you as help me, like sad, And so when we found out, it was on a Sunday, there was just text messages going around of, okay, did you hear what's going on? What can I do? And I just said it was open to anybody could come to my house. Just come over. We sat on the back patio and we just sat and told stories and things like that. And I just made a conscious decision, like at that minute, because I'm good in the moment. I have my own personal breakdowns later, right? So in the moment, I am more like strong. Okay, let's figure this out. What can we do? But then I when it's quiet is when I am weak and I am sad and I break down. And that's a disservice to the people around you because it doesn't give them permission to share or feel, right? And so I made like a really conscious effort right then to really share how I was feeling about things, and that when anyone asked, are you okay? That I would say, I'm not, I'm very sad. Like I am very sad. I'm having a hard time. Then that gave them the opportunity, doesn't make them feel like, oh no, she's going to break. And are we all going to fall apart? It's not that. It's, hey, why? I can trust you. I'm not doing okay either. I'm also sad. And that we can help each other just sit in it for a moment, and that it's okay for it to not be okay.
Yeah.
And then let's move away from it.
Yeah, I love that. It was a very sad example. I love that vulnerability can show up in a big way there. As I read the book by Brene Brown around vulnerability and leadership is really caused me to slow down and think about how to show up more vulnerable. And I found that really directly, even with the people, like the closest people on my team, my direct reports, by sitting down with them and saying, and actually just like almost openly admitting, like, this is where I feel like I'm failing as a leader. This is where I feel like I need to grow as a leader. I actually felt like increased my bond with some people on my team, of them saying like, we see that, or here's my take on that, or even if it's them saying that's actually not where I feel like you're failing as a leader, you need to grow as a leader, but have you thought about this? It just opened up these conversations that really helped my leadership. It did two things. One is it helped me realize that I was even farther off from being the leader that I wanted to be, and expanded how I want to grow. But it also increased the relationship with the people with whom I've get the opportunity to lead, and actually recommitted me to grow as a leader. So that vulnerability part has been a really interesting journey for me as well.
It is it's such a perspective thing, right? And like when you're thinking of just kind of leadership in a whole, and the different people and on your leadership teams, and what they bring to the table is really important. So like, for example, this is an analogy I use a lot with my team, is if we're in Salt Lake County, we get a lot of smog in the winter, right? If we decide we're going to go to that mountain, but we can't see the valley, I can't control that there's smog and fog in the valley, but we're going to go to that mountain. I have this idea. We're going to go to the mountain. I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. So this is where I need you guys. We're going to go to the mountain. Help me figure out how we're going to get there. What tools do we need? Who's the best at those tools? How can we get that figured out? And then that's a part of it. But the other part of it is, okay, if you're the person that's coming with the map, I want to sit down with you with the map. I want to see your perspective. What's the point that we're starting? And I want to sit in your perspective to see at what angle you're looking at the mountain. Am I looking at it from over here? Are you looking at it from over here? And try and be in that perspective, because they say perception is reality, and really sitting and seeing it from their view is really, really hard. And I am such a fast-paced person that I have to consciously do this, to sit and try to look from their perspective. It helps me be more tolerant. It helps me be more understanding. And I also get faster results from them, because they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel valuable, they feel important. Yeah. So when you're talking about like, how do you teamify, or people like love being on your team or whatever, it's so much more than just buying matching sweatshirts. Because if somebody buys you a matching sweatshirt and you are forced to wear it, you resent it, you feel it, you hate it, you know.
Yeah, that's the outward expression of what you've built internally, really.
Yeah. Yes, so, but you got to also have the sweatshirt, because that's the cherry. That's the cherry.
That's the cherry. And it's a great way. Like when we get together and all of our teams come together, it's everyone else doesn't see all the work and the energy that you guys put into building that relationship internally. But something like the sweatshirts, they're reflected on the outside of like the bond is there. So I do think that's a fun and great part of it, but it is the cherry on top. It doesn't represent the hours of leadership work that's gone in behind it. So to wrap up our conversation, the last thing I wanted to touch on real quickly was this: is when we talked beforehand, you used the word intentional. It's intentional. It's intentional. You've said it a couple times in our conversation today. So I feel like a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, business owners, that I hope are taking away from our conversations around leadership, is that they want to grow their leadership. They want to continue down that journey. If you were to just give a couple pieces of advice of one, after you recognize I do want to grow my leadership, what's the first couple steps they take in being intentional on moving down that leadership journey?
It starts with having good mentors, right? People who are doing it. That's just with everything in life. People that are doing it better than we are, and at a higher level, and also like really specific examples of those kinds of things. Like, that person's a great leader, I want to be a great leader like them. That's too broad. I think even exactly what you're doing with this podcast, I think is so great. And this component of leadership is an area that I want to grow. So who's specifically doing well in this? That's really important. I think it's important to start with a temperature meeting. Like, how are we doing? What's going on? Tell me what's working great. What's not working well. Just figuring out where your baseline is with everyone as a whole, as a group. And then you're able to identify who maybe is feeling a little bit down, or not as excited, or needs a little bit of support in a different way, and how can we buoy them up and be aware of that. I think you've got to know that first of all, and then again, go back and clarify your vision. Is this something that you would follow? Is this something that you would get behind? Because if your vision is, this is going to be so awesome because you guys are going to make me a lot of money, is not like I don't think you should do that. And then just try. I mean, I feel like I'm not giving anything that is new for sure. It's just who makes you feel good, like books that make you feel good, or podcasts that make you feel good, that make you feel energized, that make you feel like as you're going through them and you're being thoughtful about people who are on your team, maybe to try and help to inspire you of what that specific person might need, or a story or a connection or something that you've learned, some kind of a principle or an opportunity. Go about it with those people in mind, instead of how can I learn and how can I be a leader. As you're reading the books or listening to podcasts or whatever that is, go with the mindset of how can I specifically help Amy, or what can I do for Rich? What is it that Tyler needs? And try and be intentional about finding a focus specific to that person has been helpful for me.
I love those ideas. I think that's phenomenal. And I think that too many of us try to fix I use air quotations here, fix our leadership on our own, when think about we've got the perfect resources right in front of us to give us feedback on how our leadership is showing up from the people that we lead. So I love that temperature idea of just saying, and I think we should give ourselves some grace too in that conversation to say, where am I showing up as a positive way as a leader?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do more of that. And where, from your perspective, where are my shortcomings as a leader? Where can I be a better leader for you? So
and it has to be you first. You have to be the one first that's saying, okay, putting yourself out there to model that. And it's hard because and in the beginning, they don't want to say anything negative about you. Right.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of practice. And again, like the more you can build the relationship and the trust with them, then the more safe it is for them to feel like they can.
Yeah. I love that. And I think I've said to several times in different episodes that we forget that leadership is a skill set. Like we're a lot of us are really great salespeople, really great marketers. We're so busy, our calendars are full, our to-do lists are long. We forget that we think the leadership is just going to show up because we're doing well in these other things, that we have to take the time to grow our leadership. So to wrap up our conversation, anything else that you want to add before we wrap?
I think the last thing I would say is to be also aware of what's kind of going on. I know we've all been going through a lot, in terms of the environment and things. Coffee goes a long way, little things like that. Hey, I'm going on a coffee run. What do you need? Those little small things just really help. When our office was shut down with COVID, I did coffee orders and took them to their houses. Those kinds of things, they really think it's important. It makes them realize, it's not even makes them think, but it makes them know that you are thinking about them often and not just when you want something to get done. That's
great point. And I think those go a long way, particularly if you know them well enough to what the coffee order is without having to ask, right? Things like that.
Totally.
They show that you care. I love that. Great ahas. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for your time. Enchilada Nation, thanks so much for being on. Continue to lean in as we continue our leadership series over the next couple weeks. And don't forget, go live life on your terms. Thanks so much.
Thank you.